Hi, boys and girls. In writing for the next couple of weeks, several weeks actually, we're going to be revisiting narrative writing. This is something that we did pretty close to the beginning of the school year. After we did our illustration study, we talked about narrative writing. And you guys got to write some narrative stories, but we've become such better writers now that I can't wait to see how our narrative stories come out. And these are some of the funnest stories for first graders to write. But anyway, how we're going to start today is I'm going to read you two books. And these are books that are written by real people, authors, and they are a type of narrative writing. So I'm going to read you two of them, and your job is to listen to me read both books. And then on the student page of Seesaw, I want you to write down some things that you notice about these books and the type of writing. So what do you think narrative writing is? See if you can go back and kind of remember in your head one of the first types of writing we did, and then listen to these two books and see if you can kind of tell what type of writing narrative is. Okay, so we're going to start with this one. This one is called Pet Show, and it is by Ezra Jack Keats. So he is writing this story about a pet show. So here we go. Everyone was talking about the pet show. I see a lead right there. The kids told each other about the pets they would bring. Matt said he would bring ants. I'm going to bring my mouse, bragged Roberto. What are you going to bring, Archie? The cat? Uh-huh, said Archie. Now look at the writing. I already hear talking. Okay, I see talking marks and I see talking in there. The next day, they all got ready for the pet show. Where's the cat? Archie called. Anyone see the cat? Archie and Willie looked in the cat's favorite hangouts, while Peter and Susie searched up and down the street. No cat. Archie's mother came to the window. Where can that cat be? He asked her. You know how independent he is, Archie. You never know when to expect him. But I expect him now. It's time for the pet show. Maybe he's inside somewhere. Archie ran into the building. After a while, he came to the window. I can't find him. I looked all over the place. Well, you'd better start without me. Gee, we're sorry, Archie, said Peter. So long, said Susie. They got to the entrance. A lot of people were already there. Just then, Roberto's mouse ran off. And Willie chased the mouse, and Roberto chased Willie, and Peter chased Roberto, and Susie chased Peter. And the show started. Uh-oh, none of them are at the show. Line up with your pets, please, the judges called. And they walked up and down, looking carefully at every pet and asking, how old is your pet? And what's your pet's name? Everyone got a prize for something. There was the noisiest parrot, the handsomest frog, the friendliest fishes, the yellowest canary, the busiest ants, the brightest goldfish, the longest dog, the fastest mouse, the softest puppy, the slowest turtle, and many more. As the last prize was awarded, someone shouted, "Look, here comes Archie." Hello, you're just in time, a judge said. What's in that bag? My pet. May I see it, please? At that moment, the cat showed up. Another judge called out, "A blue ribbon to the nice lady for the cat with the longest whiskers." Before anyone could say anything, he pinned a blue ribbon on the old woman and came back to Archie. Uh-oh, that was Archie's pet. What kind of pet have you got in that jar? A germ, answered Archie. And what's your germ's name? Archie thought for a moment. Al, he said. The judges whispered to each other. A blue ribbon for Al, the quietest pet in the show, the judges announced. Well, that was pretty clever of Archie, huh? As everyone was leaving, the old woman came over to Archie. He's really your cat, isn't he? She said. You should have the ribbon. It's okay, Archie said. You keep it. And he ran to join his friends. They passed the old woman on their way home. Thank you for the ribbon, she called. Archie smiled. It looks good on you. See you around. See you around, she said. Okay, so think about this story. It's by Ezra Jack Keats, right? Now, he writes a lot of books, and they have the same people in them. So if they all have the same people in them, could he maybe know them? And I think I've read you this story before, but it's okay to reread stories. Now I'm going to read you this story, A Chair for My Mother. I want you to listen to this one, and think about the pet show one, and think about this one, and think about what they have that's kind of in common and why they maybe are narrative writing. This one is by Vera Williams. Here in the very front, there's a clue. It says, in memory of my mother, Rebecca Poringer Baker. So it's in memory of her mother. My mother works as a waitress in the Blue Tile Diner. After school, sometimes I go to meet her there, and then her boss, Josephine, gives me a job too. I wash the salts and peppers and fill the ketchups. One time, I peeled all the onions for the onion soup. When I finish, Josephine says, "Good work, honey," and pays me. And every time, I put half of my money into the jar. It takes a long time to fill a jar this big. Every day when my mother comes home from work, I take down the jar. My mama empties all her change from tips out of her purse for me to count. And then we push all the coins into the jar. Sometimes my mama is laughing when she comes home from work. And sometimes she's so tired she falls asleep while I count the money out into piles. Some days she has lots of tips, and some days she only has a little. Then she looks worried. But each evening, every single shiny coin goes into the jar. We sit in the kitchen to count the tips. Usually, Grandma sits with us too. While we count, she likes to hum. Often, she has money in her old leather wallet for us. Whenever she gets a good bargain on tomatoes or bananas or something she buys, she puts by the savings and they go into the jar. When we can't get a single other coin into the jar, we are going to take all the money out and go buy a chair. Yes, a chair. A wonderful, beautiful, fat, soft armchair. We will get one covered in velvet with roses all over it. We are going to get the best chair in the whole wide world. That is because our old chairs burned up. There was a big fire in our other house, and all our other chairs burned. And so did our sofa, and so did everything else. And that wasn't such a long time ago. My mother and I were coming home from buying new shoes. I had new sandals, and she had new pumps. And we were walking to our house from the bus, and we were looking at everyone's tulips. She was saying she liked red tulips, and I was saying I liked yellow ones. And then we came to our block. Right outside our house stood two big fire engines. I could see lots of smoke. Tall orange flames came out of the roof, and all the neighbors stood in a bunch across the street. Mama grabbed my hand and we ran. My Uncle Sandy saw us and ran to us. And Mama yelled, "Where's Mother?" And I yelled, "Where's my grandma?" And my Aunt Ida waved and shouted, "She's here, she's here, she's okay, don't worry." Grandma was all right. Our cat was safe too, though it took a while to find her, but everything else in our whole house was spoiled. Oh no, look at everything in the house. What was left of the house was turned to charcoal and ashes. We went to stay with my mother's sister, Aunt Ida, and Uncle Sandy. And then we were able to move into the apartment downstairs. We painted the walls yellow and the floors were all shiny, but the rooms were very empty. All their stuff burned up. The first day we moved in, the neighbors brought pizza and cake and ice cream, and they brought a lot of other things too. The family across the street brought a table and 3 kitchen chairs. The very old man next door gave us a bed from when his children were little. And my other grandpa brought in his beautiful rug. And my mother's other sister, Sally, had made us red and white curtains. And Mama's boss, Josephine, brought pots and pans and silverware and dishes. And my cousin brought me her own stuffed bear. Everyone clapped when my grandma made a speech. "You are all the kindest people," she said, "and we thank you very, very much. It's lucky we're young and can start all over." That was last year, but we still have no sofa and no big chairs. And when Mama comes home, her feet hurt, and there's no good place for me to take a load off my feet, she says. When Grandma wants to sit back and hum and cut up potatoes, she has to get as comfortable as she can on a hard kitchen chair. So that is how come Mama brought home the biggest jar she could find at the diner, and all the coins started to go into the jar. Now, the jar is too heavy for me to lift down. Uncle Sandy gave me a quarter, and he had to boost me up so I could put it in. After supper, Mama and Grandma and I stood in front of the jar. "Well, I never would have believed it, but I guess it's full," Mama said. My mother brought home little paper wrappers for the nickels and the dimes and the quarters, and I counted them all out and wrapped them all up. On my Mother's Day off, we took all the coins to the bank, and the bank exchanged them for $10 bills. And then we took the bus downtown to shop for our chair. We shopped through 4 furniture stores, and we tried out big chairs and smaller chairs, high chairs and low chairs, soft chairs and harder chairs. And Grandma said she felt like Goldilocks in the 3 Bears, trying out all the chairs. Finally, we found the chair we were all dreaming of, and the money in the jar was enough to pay for it. We called Aunt Ida and Uncle Sandy, and they came right down in their pickup truck to drive the chair home for us. They knew we couldn't wait for it to be delivered. I tried out our chair in the back of the truck. Mama wouldn't let me sit there while we drove, but they let me sit in it while they carried it up the door. We set the chair right beside the window with the red and white curtains. Grandma and Mama and I all sat in it while Aunt Ida took our picture. Now, Grandma sits in it and talks with people going by in the daytime, and Mama sits down and watches the news on TV when she comes home from her job. After supper, I sit with her, and she can reach right up and turn out the light if I fall asleep in her lap. Okay, so both of these stories are types of narrative writing. How can you tell? What did they have in common? Think about that and try to write down at least 3 things you notice about both of these books.